Number 2 on the list is going to be the murky cases. Because if you do set a goal and you have a vision, the road is going to be long and it's going to be strenuous, and many people are just not going to make it. Definitely not for the first time. Actually, most people, almost all people, will not make it the first time. That's why it's so important to just keep trying, to get up, don't give up, just get up and move on. But yeah, it's not easy. Life is not easy. It's a big game where everyone wants to win. Well, not everyone, but most of us want to win. And to a strong degree, the game is competitive. So you may just look out at the road ahead and think that maybe it's not worth the effort. Maybe it's not worth the sacrifice. It's not that you cannot motivate yourself to do anything, and that when you really want something, you just get discouraged by something that you don't understand. You weigh the pros and cons and you decide that it's just not for you. And maybe later when you revisit it, you may be thinking, well, maybe there was something there, maybe my internal motivation is somehow affected by a disorder. And you may be right, but it's not sure. Be careful about how you self-diagnose, and even when you are diagnosed by a professional, be careful if you have given them really the 100% objective information as much as you can. Because you don't want to be diagnosed with something that you don't have, and vice versa. Of course, when you are so exhausted that you cannot go on, it may seem tempting to try to find another solution. But from my experience, this is not what people generally do. It is usually quite intuitive if what you have just done is a disorder, if there is something wrong, if it's not what you want, if something is stopping you. You can also gauge it from reactions of other people. You can also gauge it from your past. These things all together will give you a better understanding if what you are facing is just burnout or just not really wanting to go on, or if it can be something more serious. And when we are talking about more serious, there are other things than ADHD. And when you think automatically that it is ADHD, well, it's not always. There are many different diseases, like for example depression, where you are in a really dark place, so dark that you cannot even find your motivation to do anything. If the depression is bad enough, you can't even find the motivation to get out of bed. Depression is not super sadness. Depression is like everything bad thrown together. It's like life has no meaning anymore if you are depressed severely enough. And there are other conditions like, for example, personality disorders. Avoidant personality will find it difficult to socialize and to enter the business area if, for example, they dream up that they want to be an entrepreneur or just work in a team of people and they have the avoidant disposition. It can be really difficult and it can cause a very strong lack of motivation to do that ever again. And the same goes for borderline personality disorder. With borderline personality, there will be many similarities to depression and many more different problems. I don't want to get too deep into it because this is still a video on ADHD, but these are some different possibilities. And number 3 is, well, ADHD is actually real. So ADHD belongs to a cluster of disorders known as neurodevelopmental, and it cannot be put into another cluster like, for example, mood disorders like depression, because it's a complex disorder. The symptoms are not really following a certain theme, so to say, so they jump all over the place, and that's why it is basically easier to group them by their cause rather than by their symptoms. So for example, autism is also in this same category, and other more serious and actually, for example, completely debilitating diseases can be here as well. If you have already excluded the feelings that we discussed in number 1 and number 2, then ADHD may be a likely culprit. But apart from low motivation or laziness, you also have to have all the other symptoms, of course. The thing that you can do to just imagine how it feels, and if it actually feels like that to you, is to remember when you were actually lazy. The people that I talked about in the beginning probably think that ADHDers can never get lazy, and that's of course not true. All people get lazy. ADHDers get lazy just like anyone else, and I was a great example of that. In my teens, I fulfilled perfectly what I described in the beginning with the video games. I just didn't really want to do anything. I didn't have an aim in my life. I just wanted to stay home and just not think about it, and I have time, and let the other people worry about it. I can stay home for as long as I want, and I still go to school, and I still go to university, and yeah, there's time for everything. That is laziness, and I remember what it feels like. The real reason why I even discovered ADHD is because about 3 years ago I decided that I need to stop doing all of that, and I managed to do it multiple times, but every time I ran into a brick wall after a quick moment, a month or two, where I was just hyper-focused. The hyper-focus shifted somewhere else, and the ADHD lack of motivation did the rest. It was just impossible to break. Now it starts to seem brighter. Now when I'm on the medication, which is working only so-so, but still it is enough of a kick to break through that barrier. And maybe for some who have a little bit lower levels of ADHD, you can break through that barrier too, with all the compensation. But again, I strongly recommend to at least get the diagnosis, at least know that you have to compensate, so that you can work accordingly. ADHD is distinguished from laziness by your true inner will and drive to do something that you just cannot. You can start, you can get through some of the most difficult obstacles. You can get through the most difficult exams in your university curriculum, and you will still fail on just giving the papers too late, or forgetting to sign up for the next year, or something like that. Then that clearly suggests that it is ADHD, because it's not your lack of motivation as in laziness. It's just lack of motivation that causes you a weird issue that no one will understand. Maybe there will be one subject that you just cannot bring yourself to finalizing. Maybe there will be multiple of them. It doesn't really matter. What matters is that ADHD is typically paradoxical. Other people will be surprised and confused why you failed. You will be surprised and confused that you fail. You will have a strong inner will to do it, and you will feel extremely depressed that you just cannot make yourself. And most importantly, remember what it feels like to be lazy, and recognize when it's not actual laziness. It's just something that you really cannot control, even if you really try. So please, if you like the video, drop a like, drop a comment, maybe subscribe, and I'll see you later this week, so it may take a little bit longer than usual. But I'm looking forward to it. See you then.